Yo, what's up, guys? It's the Crypto Homie back at you again. So now that you've learned some reasons why you should care about Bitcoin, see the hedge against inflation that we talked about in the previous video, seeing that the US dollar isn't backed by anything other than a belief system, which other countries, their fiat dollars had the same belief system and it has failed, and it's hyperinflated, and now they can't buy anything. It's worthless currency, and their government just makes another one that does the same thing like 10 years later. So let's go into like what is Bitcoin, what's the big deal about it? Why is it better than like a fiat currency? Well, it has the biggest thing. It's kind of like gold. People always say, oh, like Bitcoin might be like an e-gold. It's kind of like a digital gold. But the best thing about it is that it's scarcity. So that simply just means that there's only so much of it. It's just kind of like real estate. There's only so much land. You can only buy so much land. You can't just produce it. In theory, you could probably build layers of land and stuff like that and build up the ocean and make more. But to a certain extent, there's only so much. So in the Bitcoin white paper, because Bitcoin was created by some guy named Satoshi Nakamoto, and in the white paper that lays out all of the rules of how the mining of how like everything works. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin mined ever. There's approximately 18 million Bitcoin mined already, and every so many blocks, because it's built on this thing called a blockchain. Every so many blocks, there's a halvening in the amount that gets rewarded to the miner. So when somebody mines Bitcoin, it's essentially people, they use their computer power to do this algorithm that then transacts somebody's transaction of Bitcoin. So they get rewarded for keeping the network going. So you have millions of computers working together. They're all trying to fight to get the algorithm, so then they get paid. So when Bitcoin first came out, when it was just like Satoshi and maybe two other guys or just very few people, the reward was 50 Bitcoin per block. And it takes about 10 minutes to solve a block. So to make everything simple, for 10 minutes you'd be getting 50 Bitcoin. Back then though, Bitcoin was worth $0. So it was worth nothing. So, back then they made a lot of Bitcoin, but it was like worthless. So, but every so many blocks you go, so then they had the first, it's called halvening, to where now the miners will be rewarded 25 Bitcoin instead of 50. So you can see how where now you're lowering the supply that's being produced and you're lowering the circulating supply. The total supply is always 21 million. So now, because we're at around 18 million, and back in May, it was May 8th or May 9th of this year, 2020, it was the third halvening happened. So now, if I remember correctly, it was 50 to 25 to 12 and a half. Yeah, so they're either getting 12 and a half or 6.25. I have to double check that. But still, the whole point is that the circulating supply is lowering. Because I just remember before the halvening in May, the miners were producing about 1,800 Bitcoin a day. Now they're producing 900. So that's a complete shock to the supply. Everybody's like, oh, the price is going to go so high in May because it just has to, supply and demand. But the thing is, the effect of the new circulating supply, the decreased amount, is never realized at the time of the halvening. It's always usually 18 months later, sometimes 24 months later if you check the charts. So now that we mentioned the scarcity, something else that is very good about it is the divisibility. That just means that you can create into smaller amounts. It's kind of like we have pennies, dimes, nickels, quarters, even half dollars. Then we have dollar bills, $5 bills, your $10 bill, $20 bill, 100, 50, all that good stuff. So you can break it down. So for example, you may be aware Bitcoin, I haven't checked the price lately, but it's around like 11,000 to 12,000. It's hovering in that range. So it's like, so I want to go buy a coffee for $2. Like, how am I how am I going to do that? Well, the cool thing is it breaks down to 8 decimal places, so you can send 0.0001 Bitcoin. And all you have to do is take whatever 0.0001 times the price of Bitcoin. That's how much it's worth in US dollar equivalents. So if you want to buy a coffee, and it's $2, so in your wallet you could type in $2, you could convert it to how much Bitcoin that is, and then you could buy the coffee. So the cool thing is, and then and to make it simple, because you're like, whoa, like 0.000, like what's that? That's crazy. Well, there's these things called Satoshis. So Satoshi conversion 2 BTC. So for every one Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is the equivalent of 100 million Satoshis. So for example, one Satoshi is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, is 8 decimal places. It's 7 zeros and a 1, so 0.000001. Yeah, because 2, 4, 6, so 7 zeros and a 1. So the whole idea is that if Bitcoin would ever hit like $1 million per coin, like how are you going to use it? How that sounds crazy. Well, we have these things called Satoshis, and there's charts. And I know it sounds complicated. It's like, well, this is new and everything. But at the end of the day, you have to realize if this would turn into the new reserve currency, which some people think it's possible, Satoshi would just be the new standard. It'd be the new measurement. You no longer have the U.S. dollar, so you no longer have cents and all that stuff. It's just like learning that. So, or like learning how Euro uses their coins or the yen or just anything like that. So it's good that it's divisible and able to be broken down and, to a certain extent, like usable. The next thing is transportability. So when people say Bitcoin's kind of like gold because it's scarce, well, have you tried to move $1 million worth of gold? Probably not, because that would cost a lot of money. You'd probably need dump trucks and tractor trailers, and you could never hop on an airplane with that. The cool thing with Bitcoin is that you can have access to your wallet anywhere. You can go through the TSA at an airport and you have, say you have $100 million, you could literally have $100 million on you, but they would never know. So they just don't know. And you're not breaking any laws because it's not physically on you, but you still have access to it. So that's where the transportability is great. So you can go to countries. There's no like, oh, you know what? I'm going to Europe, so I got to go get the euro. I'm going to Japan, I have to get the yen, or I think they use the yen. But for example, they have to use their currency. You don't have to do that. You can literally go anywhere as long as they accept Bitcoin and use it. So that's pretty cool. And then something else that's pretty good is the durability. You're not going to like get your coins dirty because it's just code. They're not physical coins. If somebody tries to sell you a Bitcoin and it's a coin, they're scamming you. So don't fall for that. Something else that's good. So like with the US dollar, the counterfeit money it happens. There's counterfeit $100 bills, 50s. You're not going to get a counterfeit Bitcoin as long as you follow the safety precautions of making sure you actually buy a real Bitcoin. And that's as simple as that. There's not going to be a fake Bitcoin. So just have to be aware of there's something called Bitcoin Cash, but that's a completely other different cryptocurrency. It's not Bitcoin. So there's these things called altcoins, and altcoin is something it's another cryptocurrency that's not Bitcoin. And they might use the word Bitcoin in their name, so then it sounds like, oh, that's Bitcoin, it costs way less, let me buy that because it's more affordable, I can actually buy a whole one. Oh, because side note, that's something with the brain. The brain loves whole numbers. When let's say you want to invest $20 and it ends up being like 0.0003. That's how much you buy. You're like, wow, I feel like I have nothing. But I can buy this other Bitcoin that says Bitcoin and something else after it, and it's only $1. I put $20, I have 20. So 20, that sounds good, right? You don't want to fall for that because it does sound good in the head. It does. I have 20. Whoa, instead of 0.0003. But it's not the same thing. Like, you want the real deal. You don't want, at the same time, in my opinion, it's just a counterfeit Bitcoin. Even though you can tell it's counterfeit because it's not the real deal. It's going to use a different blockchain, and you have to have a different wallet for that, which we can get into wallets at a future time. So there's ways of knowing. It's easier to know if it's counterfeit, essentially. But I guess I should go over some of the challenges with Bitcoin. Like right now, it's not like you can't just go to your grocery store and buy it, or buy it or even spend it. Like you can't go pay your groceries with Bitcoin. Like unfortunately, that's not an option. But there are companies. I believe Wirecard's one of them. The Crypto.com. They'll send out a debit card, and you link your wallet that has crypto in it. And then when you want to buy something, you swipe your card. It literally sells your Bitcoin to US dollar instantly, and then just pays for the item right then and there. So since I have mentioned it a couple times, what is like a wallet? Like, what is a wallet? I don't have my wallet on me, but if I had my physical wallet, I could show you my physical wallet. That's, where you put your US dollars in, your credit cards, all your plastic. So think of Bitcoin, since it's all digital, all code, you have to have a digital wallet. So it's kind of like out there in the space, like cloud storage, just cloud, all that stuff. It's out there, and like, wherever you can't even see it, it's just out there. It's the same thing. That's why it's transportable. That's why you can go to the airport, go from America to Hong Kong, or I mean anywhere. It doesn't really matter, and you have your Bitcoin, because if you have access to these things called, if you just, we'll go into the access of wallets in a future video, but if access to your wallet, then you'll be able to spend your Bitcoin, move your Bitcoin, buy things with your Bitcoin if somebody accepts it. And what's interesting is, in a lot of third world countries, they do accept Bitcoin. It's more common than you think. It's just, and that's it's just from what I've read online, and it seems like it's because of the inflation thing. They know that it's worth it. Like, I know in Venezuela, I keep reading that they have their fiat currency. That's how they can buy stuff. They can't use Bitcoin to buy stuff. But what they do is they like to hold their money in Bitcoin. Then when they need to go buy something, they'll sell a little bit of Bitcoin, or they have another currency, another altcoin they use down there. They sell it so then they can use their current currency to buy something, because their current currency inflates so fast that, like, they're just losing money. They have to use Bitcoin or an altcoin to hold value. So that is something to keep in mind. And like, I want to make it clear, I don't hope the US dollar goes away. I mean, we have a good thing going right now. We don't want it to break down. But at the same time, especially with current times, with the way they're printing money, it's always be best to be aware of what's out there, to hedge the like the risk. If you are someone that invests money and you understand investing, you'll understand risk management, and you want to manage that risk, mitigate that risk, so then it's not a surprise to you. Even if it's like in my previous video, if you think Bitcoin has a 1% chance of surviving, then 1% of your net worth should be in Bitcoin, because that's what you believe. So shouldn't your portfolio show the same? Well, guys, I think that's it for today. We don't want to throw too much at you at once, so peace out.